Hello and welcome back to Lyric Hi-Fi. And instead of having a table full of stuff, there's one thing to tell you about. What's that, Michael? What's that? Okay, so this is a CD player. Everyone remember what a CD player is?
The compact disc works on a completely different principle. For a start, it's played from the underneath side, and instead of a needle, a beam of laser light picks up a series of digital pits and troughs. And because the sound signal is sealed into a plastic sandwich, the new disc should be more resilient than a conventional gramophone record. Well, let's give it the breakfast time test. Some honey, nice and sticky, and smear that over liberally. Make sure it's nicely spread around there. Bit of coffee, should see it through. And give it a quick wipe down. Right, that should be it. Let's see how it sounds.
This is a new model of CD player. Interesting. Well, actually it is because of the history. So that's why I thought this was worth talking about. I don't think I've actually done a video before about Marantz. And that's why I thought, let's talk about Marantz. Marantz is a very well-known hi-fi name. So where does it come from? Well, the original company is probably 60 or 70 years old, and instead of it being a made-up word, there actually was a Mr. Saul Marantz. Saul as in Better Call Saul, that's kind of Saul. And Mr. Marantz set up this company, and he made products that were gold and really flash and lots of meters and things in the front of them, and he made some fantastic stuff, best known for his amplifiers, although they made speakers and all kinds of things. In fact, whenever Lyric Hi-Fi, whenever I opened it a long time ago when I was only 12, we sold a Marantz amplifier, and I think it was called a PM200, might have been an SA200, and it was a big gold thing like this, and I thought it was really good. It sold for about £39 as I recall, and we used to put it with a Riga Planner 2 and a little pair of speakers, and that was before the NAD 3020 came along, or just about that time, and the NAD took over that part of the market completely. But and Marantz really fell out of favour, and Mr. Marantz actually sold the company around about that time in the early 80s, and it was bought by Philips. Now, Philips make everything from light bulbs to heaters to televisions to all kinds of things, and this huge conglomerate basically bought the Marantz name and started getting, because Philips wasn't a great hi-fi brand, that Philips stuff that was badged Marantz. And probably if CD hadn't have happened, that would have been the end of it, and we'd all have forgotten about Marantz. But whenever Philips started making CD players in the mid-80s, their brand that they owned called Marantz, they made exactly the same player with a few tweaks and sold it for a few dollars more, as Clint would say. And they got reviews in the magazines as the Marantz one being the special one. So basically it was a bit of just using the brand name to have a slightly more upmarket product, and it worked very well. Marantz CD players were phenomenally successful and did very well, and they brought CDs to a reasonable price. A lot of people loved their Marantz CD players. And then something happened that they needed to take this further. And a man called Ken Ishiwata became world famous, which seems pretty unlikely, doesn't it? Because maybe you'll get a photograph coming up of Ken Ishiwata, a very nice man, died a couple of years ago. But Ken Ishiwata was a brand ambassador for Marantz, and so he took a Marantz CD player and he said, oh, that's not a very good capacitor, we'll change that, and we'll change that, and we'll change that. And lo and behold, what looked like a normal mass-produced Marantz CD63 CD player became the 63 KI signature, the Ken Ishiwata signature. And signature was like a script, like a signature. And that became very successful. Sold for, I don't know, £350, £400, and sold in the tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands. And for the next 30 years odd, Ken Ishiwata put his magic breath on certain Marantz products and made them the KI signature version. In fact, after 30 years, he did the KI Pearl edition. And then I think maybe he lasted 40 years of that, because I think there's a KI Ruby version of different things. But all through that time, whenever Ken was working for Philips as part of Marantz, then there was a buyout maybe 20 years ago. Denon and Marantz became one, and was owned by a company called D&M or whatever. And Ken was still involved the whole way through. And then a few years ago, Marantz was sold, as well as Denon, to an American group called Sound United, who is they describe themselves as a portfolio company. They buy brands of different types and curate them into the market. So they have Denon and Marantz, and they have now bought B&W speakers, and they also own a few different companies, mostly American. And then Ken Ishiwata left, which is a surprise to everybody. We thought that he bled Marantz, but he left and actually did some work for Rotel. Most recently, unfortunately, died a few years ago. That was a bit of a digression from Marantz. Anyway, that's the Ken Ishiwata story, because he is very famous. But the first products to come after Ken Ishiwata, instead of having the Marantz look, where these days would be CD6007 and the matching amplifier PM6007, have been phenomenally successful. Best-selling CD player, best-selling amplifier in the sort of £400 range. But it's getting more and more difficult to sell CD players and amplifiers at that price with, pandemics and the increase in price of raw materials. So although those products still exist, for Marantz, that's not the future. They needed a new design language. They needed to move things on. And so this is a Marantz CD60. There's a matching amplifier. There'll be matching AV amplifiers as well. And it's got this carbon fiber look in the front. So this is a new look for them compared to any of the old stuff, which, to be honest, was reasonably staid looking. This is a bit more flash, and of course it has to be, because instead of it being £400 range, this is now £750 range. So the question is, well, is it worth £750? And here's when you've got to actually talk about the broader CD market, because as streaming is increasing, as vinyl is doing really well, the market for CD players has fallen off a cliff. Having said that, CD sales are actually still surprisingly strong. People who have CD players still buy CDs, and they need to replace those CD players. But in the market, the likes of Riga, who make wonderful CD player at £2,000 and then made a cheaper CD player at £700, it won't be updated, the £700 one. It won't have a replacement model, because for specialist companies that model is decreasing. For someone that's a worldwide brand like Marantz, it's good that they have invested in having a new CD player to tempt people to improve their CD players. And whenever you listen to this compared to the CD6007 award-winning CD player, this is clearly better. It's clearly a level above that. Anybody that changes from the 6007 to the new CD60 will be delighted with it. It's a large improvement. It's very obvious. It's unfortunate that it's happening at a time when the CD market's diminishing, but I think for the foreseeable future, under £100,000, this will probably be the top recommendation. If you go over £1,000, the people that specialise and still make CD players, Name Audio still make a model, Saris Audio still make a model, but for something in the mass market to sound really good, I'd recommend the Marantz CD60. go along to your dealer, have a listen to one and see what you think. I also have to do the housekeeping. Should have done it at the beginning, but you still have to press the button to subscribe. Doesn't cost you anything to subscribe, just means that I get rich, and like it and all that kind of stuff. So do that, and we'll see you on the next video. Thank you for watching.